This is the Quickstart video tutorial for new Form Engine builders. You need to be a Quickbase app builder at some level already to be a Form Engine builder. Instead of having multiple topical videos to click through as your initial instruction, we made this single video for you with topics in these time-stamped sections. You can watch it all, or watch sections you need, and reference other sections later as you need the functionality in them. We hope once you see what the patented Form Engine is built to do for you, you will use its full potential to modernize your business. The Form Engine adds a whole set of integrated functionality to your Quickbase apps, enabling you to build new solutions to automate your business in ways that haven't been possible until now. 1. You can convert your PDF, Word, and paper business forms into identical digital Quickbase forms with built-in e-signatures in a patented new way. 2. You can build the new dynamic digital forms and data-populated documents your business needs going forward with our exclusive rich text builder. 3. You can easily create custom web pages and web forms that are automatically hosted and ready to use. 4. You can generate data-populated output documents and presentations in multiple formats, including online, PDF, Word, and even PowerPoint. 5. You can have highly custom mobile forms with unique functionality that includes smart QR codes, geolocation, pre-filled fields, optional SMS integration, and more. And 6, you can extract data out of populated PDFs in volume, getting their data and the PDFs automatically into your Quickbase apps with no data entry. If you need any of this functionality or all of it, you need the Form Engine because you get it all in one, fully integrated, no pipelines needed. And that gives your organization the most powerful forms-based workflow platform available. It can also replace third-party tools you may be currently using, like Docusign, FormStack, and Exact Forms, all with one product. As a form builder, you access the Form Engine from this address. Log in by inputting the short realm name of your Quickbase realm, email and password you use to log into Quickbase. You only ever need your Quickbase credentials to access the Form Engine. There aren't any separate Form Engine credentials to keep up with. If you're on single sign-on in Quickbase, you need to create a user token and input that here as your Form Engine login credential. And click to authorize Quickbase access, logging you into the Builder portal. The first of two main screens is your home screen here, which is your library of forms you or other authorized builders have digitized to your realm. You can create, manage, and use your digitized form templates from this screen. And when you create new Form Engine assets, they'll appear in this list on the home screen. Your library for your Quickbase realm will be blank to start and will populate with each form you create. You work with them all from here. You digitize new forms by clicking here and choosing your target Quickbase app for the form or document you want to create. It will take you here next, where you create or select a stored connection you want to use for the form or asset you're building. Stored connections are how this form will talk to your backend Quickbase app. You have to create one when you're getting started, and to do that, click here. Give it a name because it can be reused, so the name might be the app and type of form you're building with it. If you intend non-Quickbase users to use the form you're building, get and put a user token in the next field. This will enable your form to use the encrypted user token to automatically authenticate your users in the form, so they don't have to be Quickbase users, and you don't have to have EOTI or everyone on the internet turned on in your app for the Form Engine form to work. If you don't want to automatically authenticate users of the form you're building, get and input an app token instead of the user token where shown. You only need to put one or the other in, as the instructions describe, and submit the connection to check that it is valid and attach it to the form you're building. For additional forms to the same application, you can reuse stored connections. Now you have a choice of creating a static form or document or a dynamic one. You use the static option, which we're calling the Business Form Digitizer, when you have an existing form or document with a fixed format. This means the form or document doesn't change size for the data that's in it. Government forms of all kinds are like this. You use the dynamic option, which we're calling the Business Form Builder, when you need forms or documents that dynamically resize for the Quickbase data that's in them. You can see types of things that need this. And whether you start by copying and pasting content from Word or other sources, or building forms from scratch, you'll be using our powerful rich text editor for the dynamic forms. Let's start with a static form example, like a W-4 form, if you wanted to automate executing those with all your employees and keeping them in Quickbase. You need your target Quickbase app to have a table with all the fields in the W-4, and you'll need to build that in Quickbase before you can digitize a W-4 to it. We have that here. So now I can click New Template, choose my target app, Stored Connection, and choose my W-4 PDF to import for the static template as we've seen before. Choose the target table in my app that has the W-4 fields, and start digitizing the W-4. I'll need a file attachment field in the Quickbase table to hold the generated W-4s. So I created that with my other fields, and I can choose that as the upload file here. I also need an e-signature in the form, so I needed to create another file attachment field in my table, since we're using file attachment fields for e-signatures. I can now start dragging and dropping the fields over the spaces in the form. Any fields you have set to required in your Quickbase will be displayed as red and must be included in your form to work for adding new records. Where you may need radio buttons on your forms rather than checkboxes, you use a multiple choice field in Quickbase. And when you put it on your form, you have the option here to break it into radio buttons and put those buttons wherever you need them on your form. You can't do that in native Quickbase forms. You also control field behaviors, like requiring fields and making them conditional with the behaviors function here. These are our version of form rules, since Quickbase's API won't let us bring in form rules. And you have robust CSS formatting controls from our standard list and custom CSS code you can apply to fields in the field style section in this screen. This is free-form field placement. There aren't any row and column limitations here. Fields can also snap to a line, or you can align them visually with the red lines. E-signatures are file attachment fields, so I needed a file attachment field in my target table for each e-signature I want on the form. I call this one signature, and when I drop the file attachment field like that in, the Form Engine will ask me how I want to use it on the form, as a file attachment, a signature, or an embedded image, like photos in a form. I choose signature this time, and format it to the size I want it. I'll only do a few fields for brevity, but when I have them in place, I save and have a working W-4 form in Quickbase. Here's the URL that renders the add record version of this form. If you click here, it copies the URL to your clipboard. If you click here, it opens the form in a new tab. We use this link to have the form we're working on open in the next tab, so you can go back and forth and see the form's state as you build it out. It's common for master forms and documents to be updated over time, and we accommodate that easily here. If, for instance, the next year's W-4 comes out, you can simply replace the background template in Options here and upload the new W-4. It will replace the background image and leave all the fields in place in your working form. So you can adjust any field positions, and your existing links for last year's W-4 are now updated to be your current year's W-4. You don't have to rebuild anything. And if instead you needed to keep last year's form intact, but also need a new year's form, you don't need to build the new one from scratch. You just save as on the last year's form and replace the background image to make that copy form your form for this year. And forms or documents that are mostly the same can be copied and modified as new forms using the Save As feature. Once you've digitized a form once, it is usable for multiple functions. Besides adding new records into Quickbase, clicking this Edit link and following the wizard lets you create links to the form so your users can edit existing records. The form will be pre-filled with the data from those records. This creates a formula URL field in the target or other table. Clicking this button or sending the URL to anyone lets them update the record in the form's format with e-signatures if useful. The mouse over instructions here can remind you of what each button option does. Using the print option here is a similar wizard that creates a formal URL field that displays the populated form or document for download to PDF or print. The field's display is read-only in this version of the form or document. The prefill link here is a similar wizard that creates a formal URL that you prefill with data from an existing Quickbase record. And when the user inputs data and submits it, it creates a new record in Quickbase rather than editing an existing record. This can have a lot of use cases where you want something like employee W-4s updated over time, but creating new W-4 records, not overwriting existing ones. There's the Generate PDF function that auto-generates and attaches PDFs or PowerPoints in the Forms format for existing Quickbase records, using a webhook to trigger the auto PDF generation. There is also the Import PDF function here to parse data out of populated PDFs. The PDF data parsing can be very useful for automatically extracting data out of historical PDFs or incoming PDFs that you can't replace with Form Engine forms, for example. There is how-to documentation on these and other functions in the support portal in the product. You can embed reports into static forms and documents, but it has some formatting limitations because of the fixed size of the space on the form to fit them. In the static form type here, you are embedding reports you build in your Quickbase app and size them in the form here. Invoices, like in this example, are common Form Engine uses, replacing exact forms, whether your invoices work better as a static form here or a dynamic form that I'll show shortly. When you embed a report of child records like this, it displays all the children of the parent, like for invoice line items. There are advanced ways to embed reports in static forms that give you more flexibility in formatting, essentially using a rich text formula field and building the formatted report you want in that single field, and then putting that field on the form instead of a report. We can advise you on that. Custom branded forms. Whenever you need a beautiful branded form, for customer or public use for instance, you would normally have to write or pay for expensive code to create a working custom Quickbase form. But with a Form Engine, you can do it easily with no code. The approach using the static form builder here would be to create the form background built in another program like PowerPoint, Word, or anything. Or use an image or screenshot background, like a photo or part of your website. Import your file as a background image. Then just start dragging and dropping your fields. You can move them wherever you want and size them correctly for your form space. And you have a custom branded real Quickbase form for your website, event, embedded in Pages, mobile, in minutes with no code. Very powerful. Building dynamic forms and documents. For building the dynamic forms and documents you need to replace exact forms and much more, we developed this no-code HTML builder for Quickbase. You can build the form, document, and other business assets you need from blank canvas here, like in Word, but for the web, and make them Quickbase assets by inserting the live Quickbase fields from your target app and table on the left into the content on your page. You have the formatting ribbon and icons at the top for formatting content, images, and embedded Quickbase data. This includes inserting images, tables. There are some custom icons that insert things like HTML containers. This enables you to build real, custom, free-form, dynamic Quickbase forms from blank canvas with no code. Here's how you build a dynamic form or output document. For instance, from this Word document as a template. I can import this file, but I'm just going to copy all the contents from it. Start a new Form Engine form and choose Dynamic Form. Give it a title, create, choose my target table, and I get a blank canvas. I'll hit enter a few times, and if I paste the content onto the canvas, I get a pretty good version to start with in this case. Some formatting comes across better than others. I have to clean it up a little because word formatting doesn't always translate perfectly to HTML. It defaults to an 8.5 page size, but you can change that like this, including making it for on-screen presentations, where you choose widescreen. I can format any of the content with ribbon bar icons like in Word. Then, instead of dragging and dropping the fields like in the static builder, you highlight or place your cursor where you want to insert fields and click the arrow next to the field to put it there. I can also format the fields either with the ribbon bar icons above or double-clicking on a field and applying some CSS styles. You can see that this is a true no-code, free-form HTML form and document builder, the first of its kind for Quickbase. There are default links to all the fields. They can be moved around, and their size can be changed individually. For the visual benefit of your users, you may want to size text or multi-line fields to the space you think they need to fill them in. But whether you do or not, the fields will accept their data entry and expand to display all the text in the resulting form when they submit the form. That's the dynamic nature of these forms. I'll finish adding some fields and signature, and you'll be working with containers like paragraphs, divs, and tables in this builder. For developers, you can get into the source HTML here too for even more control. This dynamic builder is the modern replacement for exact forms and so much more, since it's for dynamic form input, document and presentation output, and more all in one. I can save it, and it works as a new dynamic form. And here's what another dynamic form looks like in the HTML builder screen. You can see the containers and the structure that gives it its standard PO form shape. Embedding reports and generating presentations. I'll show you how to embed child reports in a dynamic documents here. I have these child records that roll up to a monthly parent record, and I want to embed them into a dynamic form. I create a new dynamic form to the parent record. I'll just give it a quick title and some formatting, and embed the child report in it by inserting the months from the fields list, which is actually a report link field. I get this pop-up to let me choose one of two report types, tabular or vertical report orientation, and those are very different. We have built in a field selector so that you can easily choose the fields and the field order you want to embed embedded report right here, so you don't have to build a dedicated report in your Quickbase app for the dynamic builder here. You can also format the field labels and fields themselves individually. You'll see it creates a red section where the report is contained. What this means is that anything in the red section will repeat for each record in the report. You'll get an output result like this, which can be further formatted however you need. You may have data-populated output documents like quotes, POs, invoices that you generate today using exact forms, or you don't use Quickbase to generate. The Form Engine is the modern tool to use for this. Now for what we call vertical reports, which is even more flexible. And for some more complex formats, like this quote with embedded report that has 2 lines per item and a high level of formatting, exact forms and other tools fail. That quote in a Form Engine dynamic builder would look like this. So if we configure the previous simple tabular reports into a vertical report type and choose some fields for the embedded report, it renders like this in the builder. You can see the fields in the red report section can be freeform placed in containers, and records will repeat for those fields in that configuration. The vertical report type uniquely frees your report fields and tables for freeform placement in pages, presentations, and any highly formatted, data-populated output assets you may need. And this builder goes beyond that, with the functionality to automatically generate data-driven presentations. So let's say I have this PowerPoint presentation format that I need output, and 1 slide per state. for a month's reporting deck. I have the data for all the states in this table and their child records to this parent May 2022 record to this table. If I create a dynamic form for the parent record with the embedded child report in vertical orientation, I can build out this formatted single slide here with embedded formatted fields with a page break at the end and save it. Then I create an edit record formula URL field to the parent table for that dynamic form that will display as these generated PowerPoint buttons in every record. It could easily be a print field as well. I'm just using the edit field for a purpose I'll show you shortly. Now when I render one of the buttons, it actually generates my slide deck, one slide for every child record in this May 2022 parent record. We just auto-created some executive performance reporting, and now the button will automate its generation every month. You can send this link to users, or save any of the presentations as PowerPoints or PDFs and send those files to users. And beyond that, you could even put this questions and comments field at the bottom so the presentation can solicit feedback from the users in the presentation itself. That's why I used an edit record button instead of just print. There are a world of uses for organizations that have a lot of presentations or data populated assets. Custom mobile forms and portals with QR codes. Static forms are very good for mobile functionality. Most all forms will work for mobile. They just aren't optimized for mobile per se. So for a mobile-only form, you can have a background image shaped for a phone screen like this. Import it and start dragging and dropping fields onto it in a single column. This may look extra large on the builder screen, but render this form on your phone from the QR code here if you'd like to see what it looks like, and it looks about right. Form Engine forms can even be custom mobile portals with a nested set of specific purpose forms, documents, and other assets, like the sample mobile portal on the left. And they can be smart forms, knowing what equipment, facility, or employee they're attached to without having to ask the user. They can have e-signatures for mobile sign-offs and SMS text integration. This is very advanced functionality that the Form Engine uniquely enables for you, and we hope you'll employ it. Here are some use cases for equipment, facility, or vehicle-specific QR codes and forms. I won't take time going through these. Here's a healthcare or other inventory request and replenishment example with inventory-specific QR codes. Here are some sample working mobile forms and their QR codes. Feel free to try any of them. Some of these have pre-filled values where they know what they're attached to. They can know where they are by live geolocation or pre-filled values for fixed location assets and more. And for creating read-only and mobile informational assets, take a document, image, or other asset you want to digitize, like a safety rules document. Import it as a background. You have to give the Form Engine a target app, but not a table since they won't have any Quickbase fields in it, and save it. And you can print or embed the QR code anywhere your users need to pull up that asset on their phone. In less than a minute, you have created an online version of the safety rules with URL link or QR code for mobile, and it's in your Form Engine library for use anywhere. Here for your reference is a vendor pre-qualification and onboarding workflow example. It could just as easily be for employees or customers. If you're doing your vendor qualification and onboarding with the Form Engine in Quickbase, like can be done in this Vendor Lightning app, you could have your W-9, pre-qualification form, NDA, and other forms digitized with the Form Engine. Then, for instance, if one of your buyers wanted to qualify and onboard a new vendor, they could just go to the vendor table and fill out as little as 3 fields for the vendor name, and contact email, and save the vendor record to kick off the modernized process. Then a Quickbase notification goes to the vendor contact like this that says, "Thank you for your interest in doing business with us. Please click the links to complete and submit the forms we need." When they click the first one, they get a Form Engine online version of the company's real pre-qual form, populated with as much information as the buyer put into the Quickbase vendor record. That's easy for the vendors to update and complete. The fields in the form are real Quickbase fields, since it's a real Quickbase form to the vendor table. It's enhanced with features like freeform radio button placement, which is critical. Any fields can be required, and field behaviors can make some fields conditional on the input to other fields. It has e-signatures, so they don't have to download a PDF, print, sign, scan, and email. They just complete this online version with full field validation and submit it. They get a success message, which you can configure, and they're offered a download PDF of the form they just completed. Back in the vendor record in Quickbase, when I, as a buyer, refreshed the screen, all the information the vendor provided in the pre-qual form updated the Quickbase record, and a copy of their signed PDF was auto-generated and attached in the record. Here's the same vendor online completion of your NDA. It's partially pre-filled with live Quickbase data from the vendor record that the vendor themselves just updated. It has required fields. The online Form Engine forms are identical to the PDF, Word, and paper forms they replace, so the users don't see anything different, except the forms have full field validation, pre-filled data, and e-signatures built in, so it's easier for them to correctly and completely fill out and submit the forms you need them to. Then it saves your people emails, file shuffling, and data entry, and any errors in those, because the validated data and generated PDFs go into Quickbase instantly, correctly, 24/7, saving money and speeding up the business. Try digitizing and putting one or more basic forms to work for you first. It's very powerful, but complex use cases can take more skill and experience, whether you learn to do them or engage us to do them for you. The Form Engine is growing rapidly, and we appreciate any feedback. We hope you'll use it to improve your business in many areas. Contact us if we can help. Thank you.